What if buoyancy didn't exist? This seemingly simple force, responsible for keeping objects and living beings afloat in water, is often taken for granted. However, buoyancy plays a vital role in countless aspects of life, from basic survival to the development of civilization, science, and global trade. Below is a detailed exploration of how life on Earth would drastically change in a world without buoyant force. Swimming and floating would be impossible. If buoyant force did not exist, the fundamental physical ability of objects and organisms to float in water would be eliminated. In our current world, this force, explained by Archimedes' principle, allows objects less dense than water to remain suspended or float on its surface. Without it, human bodies, despite being composed largely of water, would immediately sink regardless of body composition, movement, or breathing techniques. This would not only hinder leisure activities like swimming, but would also create significant risks in situations where falling into water occurs, such as in accidents or natural disasters. The inability to float would increase mortality rates in aquatic environments and drastically reshape how humans interact with bodies of water. Marine life wouldn't survive. Aquatic organisms are evolutionarily adapted to live in water thanks in large part to buoyancy, which helps them maintain stability and orientation. Fish use swim bladders to regulate their buoyancy, enabling them to hover at various depths with minimal energy. In the absence of buoyant force, marine animals would be subjected to constant gravitational pull without any counteracting force to balance their weight. This would result in their sinking uncontrollably to the bottom of the ocean or water body, leading to fatal outcomes. Additionally, essential ecological processes like plankton floating near the surface to receive sunlight would be disrupted, collapsing the food chain. Atmospheric oxygen levels, as oceans produce over 50% of Earth's oxygen, and global food supplies. Ships and water transport wouldn't exist. Buoyancy is what allows enormous structures like ships and oil tankers to remain afloat despite their mass. The principle dictates that an object immersed in fluid experiences an upward force equal to the weight of the fluid it displaces. Without this force, all ships would sink, making water transportation impossible. Throughout history, water-based transportation has been a backbone of trade, cultural exchange, exploration, and warfare. Entire civilizations have flourished around rivers, seas, and oceans due to their strategic and economic significance. Without the ability to build and use ships, the global economy, colonization patterns, and even warfare would have developed in entirely different directions, possibly delaying technological advancements and international cooperation by centuries. Coastal cities wouldn't thrive. The rise of prominent coastal cities like Istanbul, New York, or Tokyo is inextricably tied to their access to navigable waters. These cities historically served as trade hubs because they could accommodate ships and ports, allowing for the efficient import and export of goods. If buoyant force did not exist, these cities would not have had the logistical or strategic advantages that made them flourish. Inland development would have become more dominant, and economies would have had to rely heavily on land-based trade routes, such as caravans or railways, slower, more expensive, and less efficient than maritime shipping. The urban planning, architecture, and even cultural identities of coastal cities would be profoundly altered or non-existent. The age of exploration wouldn't happen. The so-called Age of Exploration, spanning the 15th to the 17th century, was made possible primarily due to advancements in seafaring technology and the buoyancy that enabled long-distance travel by sea. This period gave rise to global exploration, colonization, and cross-continental trade. If buoyancy were absent, the very concept of long voyages by sea would be unfeasible. Columbus could not have reached the Americas, nor could Magellan have circumnavigated the globe. The absence of such exploration would mean that large parts of the world might remain isolated for much longer periods, delaying globalization, scientific discovery, and geopolitical development. Cultural diffusion, migration, and even linguistic evolution would follow a vastly different trajectory. Swimming and water sports wouldn't exist. Beyond survival and transportation, buoyancy plays a critical role in human recreation. Swimming relies on the interplay of body movement and buoyant support from the water. Sports like diving, surfing, water polo, and synchronized swimming exist because the human body can partially float and move in water without immediately sinking. If buoyancy were non-existent, these activities would be not just difficult, but impossible. Social and cultural rituals involving water, such as beach holidays, spiritual bathing, and water-based festivals, would either never develop or take entirely different forms. Lower chances of survival in water accidents. In today's world, flotation devices such as life jackets, life buoys, and inflatable rafts leverage the principle of buoyancy to keep individuals afloat during emergencies. In a world without buoyancy, these safety devices would be ineffective, significantly reducing survival rates in maritime or flood-related incidents. Moreover, rescue operations at sea or on lakes would become more complex and hazardous, as both rescuers and victims would be at greater risk of sinking. This would lead to stricter regulations around water proximity. Key scientific principles would be missing. The concept of buoyant force is one of the foundational principles in physics education. Archimedes' discovery laid the groundwork for fluid dynamics and hydrostatics, which in turn influence fields ranging from engineering to medicine. The removal of this principle would not only leave a significant gap in our understanding of natural laws, but could also stifle scientific curiosity and innovation. Engineers would have to develop alternative principles for designing structures interacting with fluids, and scientific models of Earth's processes, from ocean circulation to blood flow, would require complete re-evaluation. In short, the trajectory of scientific thought and technological progress would diverge sharply from the path it has followed in reality. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.